When an AI learns to write, paint, or compose, it's doing more than just mimicking, it's absorbing the entire history of human creativity. But where does that leave the original creator? Here's how it lines up: defining the problem, challenges and attribution, legal and ethical stakes, and finally solutions and future paths. First, defining the problem. To understand the core problem, we first need to redefine what AI is actually doing. It's not just copying, it's absorbing patterns. Think of it less like a student memorizing a book and more like a musician learning a genre. The AI system is designed to recognize statistical relationships and generate new outputs based on those patterns, not just reproducing the source material verbatim. This brings us to the legal side of the equation. We often confuse plagiarism with copyright infringement, but they are distinct concepts. Plagiarism is the ethical act of theft, passing off someone else's work as your own. Copyright, however, is the legal right to control that work, and AI systems are operating in the complex, often murky space between these two concepts. And that's where the problem isn't always direct, obvious theft. Often, the AI is simply replicating or rephrasing content, it's mimicking human creativity. This means that even if the AI doesn't copy the text word for word, it can still create outputs that are indistinguishable from the original, raising critical questions about what constitutes enough resemblance to count as infringement. Next, challenges and attribution. The challenge of attribution is fundamentally about scale. When a model is trained on massive, diverse datasets, the source of any given output isn't a single copy, it's a complex blend of patterns and features. This makes it incredibly difficult to trace back to a single, original source or even a small group of sources. You're not just copying a sentence, you're absorbing the entire stylistic fingerprint of a corpus. This difficulty in tracing sources is compounded by the legal framework itself. Traditional copyright law is built around the idea of explicit reproduction. You copy this, you violate that. But when an AI model is trained on data, it doesn't just copy, it learns the underlying statistical relationships. The law has to grapple with defining whether that act of learning is merely legitimate use or if it constitutes a form of unauthorized reproduction. And if the legal framework is already struggling, you add the layer of global jurisdiction. Data collection is inherently global, meaning your training dataset is likely pulling from dozens of different countries. Each country has its own unique set of intellectual property laws, and these laws often conflict with each other. This means that what counts as protected material in one country might be considered public domain in another, creating a patchwork of legal risk. And then, legal and ethical stakes. The legal status of training data is a gray area. Existing copyright laws were not designed for AI. The sheer scale and nature of modern datasets complicate traditional definitions of infringement, making it difficult to determine where the line is drawn. The primary defense developers rely on is fair use. Fair use is a flexible defense that permits limited use of copyrighted material for purposes like research or criticism. But when you scale that use up to encompass millions of images or text, the question of whether it qualifies as transformative or non-commercial becomes incredibly complex. The risks are substantial, extending far beyond just the courtroom. Copyright holders can pursue litigation to halt development or demand licensing fees, particularly as AI systems begin to replicate the style or content of protected works. This is compounded by the lack of standardized licensing frameworks, leaving developers vulnerable to claims of infringement. So, what's the solution? Addressing these challenges requires a multifaceted approach. One potential solution is the creation of licensing frameworks specifically tailored for AI training datasets. This ensures that creators retain their rights while simultaneously enabling responsible and commercial use. Ultimately, navigating the copyright implications demands proactive measures from both developers and policymakers. You need transparency in data sourcing, coupled with robust licensing mechanisms, to help align AI development with existing intellectual property laws. The absence of clear legal boundaries continues to pose significant challenges, highlighting the necessity of evolving legal frameworks to accommodate the unique demands of AI technology. Next, solutions and future paths. The availability of open data has fundamentally reshaped the landscape of artificial intelligence research. By making training datasets freely accessible, open data accelerates the pace of discovery, enabling researchers and developers to iterate rapidly without the constraints of proprietary licensing. However, this same openness raises complex questions about intellectual property boundaries. While open data promotes transparency and shared progress, it also blurs the lines between fair use and unauthorized replication, particularly when datasets contain copyrighted material. The variety and accessibility of open data further amplify its transformative potential. This multiplicity of inputs ensures that AI systems are not constrained by the limitations of any single dataset, thereby enhancing their reliability and generalizability. At the same time, the universal accessibility of these resources ensures that innovation is not limited to economically privileged regions, fostering a more equitable distribution of technological advancement. But without mechanisms to verify the provenance or integrity of datasets, the risk of biases, inaccuracies, or harmful applications increases. Ultimately, the implications of the plagiarism paradox will shape the trajectory of both technological progress and legal discourse. Moving forward, the resolution of these tensions will require a reimagining of intellectual property frameworks that align with the realities of decentralized open-source ecosystems. The future of AI hinges on striking a delicate balance between fostering creativity and protecting the rights of content creators. To recap, we must first distinguish between simple plagiarism and the complex pattern-based absorption that defines machine learning. Tracing the source of a single pixel or sentence across massive global datasets is a logistical nightmare. The core conflict lies in the gray area between permissible data use and the erosion of creator value. Moving forward requires specialized licensing frameworks and a clearer definition of what constitutes fair use. The law is struggling to keep pace with the machine. The creators, meanwhile, are left defining the future of art.